What's happening, friends? Welcome back to Dynamo DeFi. My name is Patrick, and on this channel I talk about cryptocurrency, decentralized finance, and economics. Today's video is all about the Avalanche Network. There's a lot of upcoming bullish things for Avalanche, and I've personally decided to spend more time focused on the Avalanche ecosystem. So today I'll go through what those catalysts are for Avalanche, why I'm so bullish on it, and then also my 6 favorite projects in the Avalanche ecosystem right now. And before I go any further, I want to emphasize that nothing I say in this video is financial advice. You should still do your own research, of which this video can be an important part. Cool, so let's get into it. First, if you're not familiar with Avalanche, it is a layer 1 similar to Ethereum, Cardano, Luna, Solana, chains like that. And it's a proof of stake, and it was founded by a Cornell professor who has experience in cryptography and proof of work coins going back decades. He actually created a proof of work coin before Bitcoin even existed. So really smart team behind it. And they've really taken off this year with their ecosystem fund, where they incentivize people to use their ecosystem, and they've grown into one of the largest chains. And despite that, there's a lot of things that are still coming up that will be new for Avalanche that I think have the potential to take it to the next level. So what are those catalysts? First is they are launching something called subnets soon. So many people, even people who use Avalanche, don't know this, that Avalanche is a layer 1 like Ethereum. However, it is also, some people don't like this term, you might call it a layer 0 like Polkadot, where separate chains can run on top of Avalanche and be secured by the Avalanche validators. So, for example, if an application got so big that it was using a significant portion of the TPS, transactions per second, on the main AVAX C chain, then that could be split out into a separate subnet, so that way it doesn't clog up the main network, which is pretty incredible, because you see things all the time, like on Ethereum when there's an NFT mint, it clogs up the network and no one can do anything. No one can do DeFi or anything like that. But with AVAX, what you could do is, if there was an NFT marketplace or a NFT project that was using too much of the network, you could split that off into a separate subnet, split off a game into a separate subnet, and then it wouldn't interfere or compete with the main network. And that's pretty incredible. And they're going to have a lot of these launching soon. They have a test subnet that launched right now, and they have some other ones planned in the future, particularly for some games. Another catalyst is that they are launching their own wallet. We don't have as much of a timeline on this, but it's implied that it will be at some point this year, if not sooner than later. And MetaMask is a sort of hallmark of the crypto space. However, there is room for innovation, and in particular, MetaMask doesn't work well with certain networks like Avalanche. And so the AVAX team has said that they are working on their own wallet, and based on the products they built in the past, I have high hopes for this. The final catalyst that I see right now is that DeFi Kingdoms, one of the largest play-to-earn games, is coming to Avalanche. They are on Harmony 1 right now, and as far as I know, they are staying on Harmony 1. However, they are also launching a realm or module of their game, whatever you want to call it, on Avalanche. And this may or may not be its own subnet. We are waiting to hear. But I think that's going to be pretty big. That's going to bring a lot of users and activity to Avalanche. And in particular, I think that actually might kickstart a lot of gaming projects on Avalanche. That's not the focus of this channel, but I am seeing an increasing number of gaming projects popping up on AVAX. Cool. So those are the catalysts, but what am I actually seeing that is making me bullish on this? First is the TVL on AVAX has been seeing some strong growth recently. So it peaked back in December after we had that major sort of season 2 of AVAX. We had an initial run up over the summer and then a second run up later in the fall, and it peaked then and then sort of drifted down as the market was turning bearish, and then has seen a really strong resurgence over the past couple weeks. And if we look at it in terms of AVAX instead of in terms of USD, the picture is even brighter. let's see, this should load in a second. I'll come back to this in a second. In the meantime, let's look at some activity on the network. And I think this is actually even bigger than the TVL. So here's some stats on usage of the AVAX network. And if we look at the transaction count, we can see that it is pretty much at all-time highs now. So it had spiked up to around 1 million a few weeks ago. And then now the past week, it has been consistently sitting around 1 million transactions per day. And I mean, that is huge. To put that in perspective, AVAX has been doing about the same number of transactions as Ethereum. So, sometimes people say, well, it can't scale. It can't maintain low fees when it gets up to the same sort of network usage that Ethereum has. But right now, AVAX has been doing pretty comparable number of transactions. Most of these days, Ethereum was around 1.1 million. AVAX is around 1 to 1.1 million. So it's so that is huge. And if you just look at the growth, this is just textbook exponential parabolic curve here, where it's growing faster and faster, and every transaction requires AVAX for gas, and many of them have AVAX as the base trading pair if they're trading things. So that's just going to increase demand for AVAX, and eventually, as far as I'm concerned, it's inevitable that it will catch up with it'll catch up with the price of AVAX, or the price of projects built on AVAX, barring a total collapse in the market. Of course, if Bitcoin crashes, everything's going to crash, and there's nothing you can do about that. And then some other things that I find interesting is that the monthly active addresses has been growing consistently as well. So if you look at that here, you can see that right now in February, just a week and a half in, we have had more active addresses than the entire month of October. And if we're able to sort of double this, then we'll pass out. Well, I guess we've probably more than double this, because there's more than half the month left. Then we will pass our previous all-time highs from the past 2 months. And, that's what you want to see, more and more people using Avalanche. That means we have almost 1 million people a month, unique people or unique addresses using Avalanche. And to me, that is extremely, extremely bullish. So basically, I'm liking what I'm seeing, both in terms of catalysts and numbers. And going back to this other slide here, you can see that in terms of AVAX, we are actually near an all-time high. So before we were measuring TVL in dollars, but if we look at it in terms of how much AVAX is locked, then it is near an all-time high. It has sort of been on a steady uptrend over the past couple months. And I think that's good, because AVAX is far below its all-time high price. So for example, if AVAX got back to its all-time high price, the TVL in USD terms would just blow out its previous all-time high. What this means is that people are bridging tokens besides AVAX over to the Avalanche network to lock them. So they're bringing stablecoins over, they're bringing wrapped BTC over, they're bringing wrapped Ethereum over, and they are locking those on the Avalanche network. Cool. And that's basically in a nutshell why I'm bullish on Avalanche. So what are the top projects that I'm looking at? What are my favorite projects on it? And I have a video on sort of how I go about finding projects. If anyone's interested, I'll link it in the description. But first one is Trader Joe. If you've used Avalanche, you are probably familiar with Trader Joe. It is the #1 decentralized exchange, and it's also a lending platform, and it is now actually a launchpad as well. So it's sort of an all-in-one DeFi platform. They've been innovating really quickly, and part of the reason why I like it, not just because it's one of the largest DeFi projects on Avalanche, but is because of their new tokenomics. And I think this is a cool opportunity to sort of get a multi-use DeFi token. So they have their Joe token, and in the past you've been able to stake that for XJoe, and in XJoe, the value in terms of Joe steadily goes up in time. They are getting rid of that model, and they are launching 3 staking options: RJoe, SJoe, and VJoe. And I've never seen a project that did a model quite like this before. So they have RJoe, where you can stake Joe and you receive RJoe, which you can then use in Rocket Joe launches. So that's their launchpad that we can see here. And they don't have any launches right now, but you can be staking your Joe for RJoe. And then they have SJO, which I guess stands for stablecoin. And they will take some of the revenue from the protocol and they'll pay it back to SJO stakers, which is pretty cool. So if you're into passive income like I am, you can stake your Joe, get some SJO, and then they'll pay you stablecoins. So it's sort of like a dividend. And then finally, they will have VJO, and VJO is for governance and also for boosting farms. So if you're a farmer, you can potentially boost that farm up to 2.5x with VJO. And I think probably we'll be able to do some fun calculations to figure out whether we are better off staking as VJO or staking as SJO, since in both cases you are getting passive income. RJO is interesting as well. I'll have to wait and see whether they allow people in the US to participate in those launches. Next project that I like is Crabada. Crabada is similar to Axie Infinity. It is a game built on Avalanche and it's got a decent amount of traction. I've not played the game myself. However, I did purchase some of their token. And what I like about this is basically, like I said before, there's a lot of gaming interest coming to AVAX and it's not my specialty. So I bought the largest one, which is Crabada. There's a lot of smaller ones and a lot of great channels that cover those. There's DCAU, there's Domi, but I just went with the one that has the most traction, activity, and usage. And if we're going to talk about metrics, some of their metrics are very nice as well. For example, their marketplace activity has been comparable to Axie Infinity recently, yet the market cap of CRA, their main token, is way below AXS. So that is a good sign for them. And so that's Crabada. I like them. Next one, and I've talked about this one at length. I've done probably 3 videos about it now. And that is Defrost Finance. Defrost is similar to Abracadabra on the Avalanche Network. They have an H2O stablecoin. It's a lending and borrowing project. And I've done so many videos about this. I'm not going to go through it all again. But the thing I like about them that's so bullish is just that their stablecoin has been really growing in market cap recently. So you can see it was around 20-some million a couple weeks ago. Now it is $74 million stablecoin, and yet their market cap for their token is less than 10 million. So to me that's a solid investment. Although their fully diluted value is still quite high, but that's why I'm farming their token. But also they have some cool things here. So for example, you can deposit liquidity pool tokens, or you can deposit chi versions of tokens. So like things that you've sort of deposited onto Benchi, like AVAX and ETH, you can deposit those here, still earn yield on it. So you have your APY, you're still earning that yield, and you can also borrow H2O tokens against that. So pretty awesome, and some cool opportunities for strategies here. One that I'm using is I am depositing my AVAX on Benchi, bringing it over here, still earning 7%, and then I'm borrowing H2O, and then I'm farming that over here for a 60% APR. So basically I'm borrowing tokens, earning APR on them, and then eventually I'll pay back the loan, but I'll keep the rewards, and that's pretty sweet. And like I said before, I'm accumulating melt that way. So that is Defrost Finance, a really cool project, and I'll link my other video about Defrost in the description. Next one is Elk. So Elk is on a number of chains now, but it started on Avalanche. So I will consider it part of the Avalanche ecosystem for this video. And Elk started as a DEX, and there were a lot of DEXs that launched on Avalanche back in the late spring, and Elk was one of them. But they've turned into a lot more since then. So they are on many different networks. I don't even know how many that is, maybe 14 or 15 networks. You can see them all here. And they're also a bridge. So they're actually one of the best small bridges, I think, because there's a lot of networks. Like some of these probably have other bridges now, but like Fuse, for example. Back when people first discovered Fuse, there were almost no bridges that would let you bridge to it. Same thing with Telos. But Elk did. Elk is usually one of the first ones there. So that's pretty sweet. And on top of that, they have some cool things planned this year. They have some cross-chain smart contracts planned. cross-chain swaps, cross-chain lending, some other sweet stuff like that. So really excited to see where this project goes. So it's one of my favorite ones on Avalanche. Next one is Platypus. Platypus is a stablecoin swap. It was built in partnership with the Avalanche team, and they have some pretty good yields if you're willing to boost your stablecoin rates by staking their PTP token. Only problem with this one is that they have a linear unlock that's several years long, and generally linear unlocks can sometimes be a problem, especially when there's also high emissions for liquidity providers like Platypus has, because that is just a lot of sell pressure. And I understand why they do that, but you have to consider with this that people who bought in the pre-sale, bought in the before it launched, they're way up even at the current prices. So as it unlocks, a lot of them are going to have an incentive to sell. So I do get nervous with the token, but even regardless of that, it's still one of my favorite projects. Their slippage right now is, as far as I understand, better on certain pairs than on Curve and Ethereum, which is incredible, because when people are trading large quantities of stablecoins, that's pretty much all they care about. If you're swapping $50 million for another stablecoin, your priority is that you don't end up with $45 million, because that is a lot of money to lose in slippage. It's a cool project. You might want to check that out. And then the final one is GMX. GMX is an options trading platform. It's on a number of networks, but includes Avalanche. And it's not really my thing as far as trading, but I still think that it's a cool project and sort of a sign of the types of things that are coming to AVAX. It's a decentralized perpetual exchange. It also has some interesting opportunities for earning. So if you're, so choose, you can stake their GMX token and you'll receive 20% APR. And that's a combination of their tokens and also in AVAX. I always like when protocols pay you in something besides their own token, because it feels more like actual passive income. And then you can also stake GLP tokens here. So GLP is like a basket of all the different tokens that people can use for perps on their platform. You can stake those here and you get APR of 66%, most of which is in AVAX, which again is awesome. And yeah, so I like GMX. And if you are into leverage trading, you can lever up quite substantially on here, although, not financial advice, but I would exercise great caution with leverage trading. Someone smart once told me, if you can't trade successfully without leverage, you shouldn't be trading with leverage. So that's all I'll say about that. And those are my favorite projects on Avalanche. We got Trader Joe, Defrost, Crabada, Elk, Platypus, and GMX. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite projects are in Avalanche, as well as what you think about Avalanche overall right now. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and give me a follow on Twitter. And until next time, this is Dynamo DeFi.